to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda.
We had a traffic consultant who worked with the township and for the township for several years, Deanna Drum, who attended our meetings and would give us reports on the traffic with the application. And she was always so delightful. I always found her delightful because traffic consultants usually are quite boring and give a lot of statistics and very hard to relate to them. But she was always very colorful and animated, and she could really make you see what was going on, you know, that this wasn't working, this would work, and so forth. So she was a wonderful individual and a real asset to our community, and unfortunately she passed away on January 16th. She was only 51 years old. She died of cancer. So I'd all like just to, if we could do a moment of silence in her memory.
Next on the agenda is the swearing in of the new and existing board members, but with new appointments. So if I could have everyone listed, if you could please rise, we can do them all at the same time if that's all right, unless anyone wants to do them separately. If you all can repeat after me. I, please state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of my position of
Mayor's designee to the
of the Township of Planning Board to the best of my ability, so help me God. Thank you very much. Okay.
Mr. Lennon?
Here.
Mr. Romakis?
Here.
Mr. De Palma?
Here.
Mr. Lauer?
Here.
Mr. Renna?
Here.
Mr. Petty?
Here.
Ms. Masella is absent. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you sneak in. Thank you. Mr. McIsaac?
Here.
Mr. Brennan?
Here.
Ms. Cannon?
Here.
And Chair Marucci is absent.
Okay, next is nominations and appointments. I would entertain any nominations for chairperson for the board for
I
2020.
nominate Dean Marucci.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other further nominations? Seeing none, could I please have a roll call?
Mr. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did, sir.
And now this is when I would normally turn it over to the chairperson, but he is not here this evening, so we will move on to the nominations for vice chairperson.
And he apologizes. He's not feeling well, so.
Understood. Do we have any nominations for vice chairperson for the planning board for 2023?
I would like to nominate Mayor Cannon.
Second.
Okay, any other nominations? Seeing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Turn it over to you.
Then we have, who's the secretary is?
Well, we're going to make a nomination.
Oh, no, but it's me. Okay, do we have nomination for secretary?
Casey Lenning?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cannon.
Nomination for vice secretary? Dan? Vice, right?
Just to clarify,
Yes, it's vice.
Danny, I nominate you, Danny.
I second it.
You just get it by accident.
Daniel Hollahan. Way to go, Danny.
Mr. It would be awkward if I didn't.
Be a short meeting?
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Board attorney nominations. I'll nominate DeFrancisco, Bateman, Koonsman, Davis, Lair, and Flum.
I second it.
You have a second?
I second it.
Oh, okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon? And, I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
And
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have the subcommittee appointments. On the master plan committee, last year, we had myself, Mayor Henry, or Steve Mamakis, and Ernie Schmidt, who isn't on the board anymore. Sorry. So is there anybody that would like to fill Ernie's spot or would like another spot on the master plan committee? We need at least one more person. Okay, Eric?
There you go.
Okay, we'll nominate Eric Palma. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Roll call? You do roll call.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes,
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Yes.
Who was second? I'm sorry.
I did.
Open space, Casey, did you still want to stay on there?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a motion to keep Casey on the committee?
Move it.
I'll second.
Moved in
Mr. De
second.
Palma was first. Who was second?
I did.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Thank you.
Okay, then the land development ordinance, last year was Dean Marucci, myself, and Mayor Henry / Stephen Mackes. So, Steve, are you still, well, I assume the mayor still wants to be on it.
I would assume yes. But it's on.
And I would still like to, I'm assuming Dean, so I don't know. Is there anybody else interested? All right, so we'll just reaffirm the ones that were on it on 2022. So
I'll make
that
a motion.
Second.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Yes. Okay, and the last one is the minor subdivision and site plan. We had Dean and the mayor and Mr. Smith, who's no longer on the board, and do you still want to be on there? Okay, is there someone else that would like to be on the minor subdivision and site plan? Anybody else? We need one more person. Okay,
I'll take it. Mrs. McIsaac.
all right. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Makis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renna?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Okay, then we have the, are we going to do these two, the planning consultant nominations? Dina, we do all three of these? That are listed?
Yes, I believe in the past we've done all three in one motion with regard to each of these. So there'd be one motion for the planning consultant nominations, one motion for the engineering, and one for the traffic, based upon the three that are listed.
Okay. So the first one, the planning consultant nominations for environmental resolutions, CME Associates, and topology. So can I have a motion?
Move it. Oh, second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Yeah. And then engineering consultants nominations, the three that are listed are Environmental Resolutions Incorporated, CME Associates, and Harbor Consultants.
Move it.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Yes. Okay, and then the, which one did we do? Just the traffic consultants? Traffic consultants, environmental resolutions, and CME Associates. I'll move it. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Yes. Okay, forestry consultants nominations, Chestnut AFS. I'll move it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Yes. Okay, and then we have the 2023 Planning Board Rules and Regulations. Does anybody have any comments or questions regarding that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that the one change from last year is with regard to special meetings. We've added a new provision in there that allows for, even though we've done it in practice, it hasn't been in our rules, that allows for applicants to request special meetings. Currently, the rules just provide that either the chairman or two members of the board can call for a special meeting. That's still in there, because it could be reasons for needing that, but we also have provisions where, or times where applicants request that. Doesn't mean they get it, but we just amended it to allow for that to happen, since it's something that actually happens in practice quite often.
Do we have to move?
Chairwoman, it's just
Yes.
to be consistent. Schedule, there is a line item for special meetings which the applicants are able to ask for, and then they pay $1,500, but then the procedures was not consistent, so we're trying to match that up.
Okay, so, yeah, I'll move the 2023 Planning Board Rules and Regulations.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Yes.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon.
Yeah. Okay, then we have the minutes of October 27th, 2022 meeting, and the minutes of the December 5th, 2022 meeting. So I will move those.
Well, I think we need to do them separately,
do
because there
need
might
to
be different
separate?
people
Oh.
that might not be eligible to vote on it, on
Okay.
attendance, so.
So anybody that was here for the 27th meeting, if you can participate in the vote.
Someone move it.
I'll move
I
it.
wasn't.
Mr. Palmer? Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lenning?
Okay,
Yes.
roll call.
Mr. Romakis?
Abstain.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Abstain.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cannon.
Yes. The minutes for the December 5th, 2022 meeting.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Romakis?
I'm gonna abstain.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Abstain.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cannon.
Okay, then the public hearing's been adjourned to March 23rd. That's the Old property / summer landfill area in need of redevelopment stuff.
No, it's just being adjourned.
Um, All right, then the presentation of the Route 35 intersection area in need of redevelopment study. Where are we doing that?
It's just, it'll take me just 2 minutes. I just wanted the board to know that at the March 23rd meeting, there will be actually 2 public hearings. One will be on the Old Bridge landfill, Summerside, and the other is going to be Route 35 corridor, which is the intersection of Route 35 and Lawrence Harbor. The council actually authorized me to conduct an area investigation study last summer. However, because the board has been busy and I have been working on other redevelopment plans, I wasn't able to finish the study, but now we are ready. Danny, can you put up?
Just the east side? We had the west side, the east side or just the inside?
This is the entire intersection, and I have the study area map. Just bear with me for a second. We're having some technical difficulty.
We did
the
the whole west
intersection.
side. I just referenced it in the redevelopment meeting. But you're just doing the intersection.
This is the intersection. Next slide. So here's the study area map. The properties shaded in blue are the ones that are included in the study. So it's Lawrence Harbor and Route 35 and the properties on either side. Yep. And there are a total of 50 properties. And I believe, do you see the street which is parallel to Lawrence Harbor to the north? There were a few properties that were excluded right there. Thank you, Danny. I think they should be included as well. So I will be going back to the council and asking inclusion of those parcels because I think it will be good to take a look at the entire block. So there are 50 properties in total, excluding these properties, and I think it's an area that is ripe for development. There has been interest from property owners. They're very anxious, and I think Steve can add more to it, but there have been some businesses there that have been struggling, a lot of vacancy, stores are empty, the parking lots are empty, so they have been struggling to find occupancy, but have failed. So I think the area designation will help spur some economic growth there. The county has developed a beautiful park. We have some Rossi properties and recreational facilities there. You all must have heard that the council is also working. We just received a grant to build a community building at the corner on a township-owned property towards the beachfront. So I believe this area has great potential and we should take a look at it. At the March meeting, I will present the area investigation study, and then if the board accepts the study and makes a recommendation to the council that this area be designated, then we will start working on a redevelopment plan. I think we don't need to do anything. I just wanted the board to know that this is something that is coming up. With Summers, you do have the report, but in this case, we're still finishing up the report. I just wanted the board to be prepared to conduct a hearing at the March meeting. Danny, can you take it to the next slide? So these are the 50 properties that are currently there. I believe there will be 6 others that will be added. And next slide. This is an area map just to give you an idea. That's the dotted circle that is around is the 5-minute walking distance. And the blue lines indicate the bus route. So there are 2 bus routes that traverse through that area. One of them is bus 817, which goes from Middletown to Perth Amboy, and then there's bus number 131 that traverses between Freehold Center and Port Port Authority, and that is the bus that actually stops by the Old Bridge commuter parking lot. And I have been working on getting a transit village designation from NJDOT for the Old Bridge commuter parking lot. So I think these two projects go hand in hand. Probably after these two studies, I will be in front of you with the area investigation for the transit village as well.
If we can meet offline, I think there's two other areas that we need to add in there that I've been showing to prospective developers.
Sure. I think we will have to go to the council to amend the resolution anyway, so we can do that at the next council meeting so that we cover all the properties.
Do the residents get noticed at some point?
Yes, they do. The law requires that there are 2 notices that are sent out. Correct me if I'm wrong. There are 2 notices that are sent. One is 10 days prior to the public hearing, and then there's another one that is sent a week in advance. The 2 notices have to be in 2 consecutive weeks, but there are 2 notices that go out. Am I correct?
Close. The timing you're talking about is actually the publication in the newspaper.
Okay.
There's only one public notice that actually has to be mailed out to the.
That is correct.
Yes.
So it is, but the property owners are notified.
Chairman, I have another question. So we just have to talk about so if a house, one of those homes gets placed into the redevelopment area, because I've gotten calls before, I think I know what the conditions are, because they'll ask, well, what can I do since I'm in a redevelopment area? So, but I think we'll talk offline.
I think I can, because it'll help. I can answer that because
And
Joe,
just want-
please fill in.
So the public may know if their property winds up in it, so at least you can explain.
Right, and I think this
Why
is
am
a
I
good
in-
time to talk about it.
Correct.
So this study, unlike the other studies that we have done, we have typically done area investigation studies to decide if it falls in a redevelopment, whether it meets the redevelopment criteria. But because there are homes involved here, this study will review the redevelopment criteria as well as the rehabilitation criteria. What that means is, if you are in a designated rehabilitation area, then unlike the redevelopment where you get tax exemption for 30 years, rehabilitation gives you a tax exemption of 5 years. And the concept is that if you qualify, obviously, but if you qualify, you can get up to 5 years of tax abatements, and that helps you to invest in your own property and improve the conditions of the property. So suppose if a home is more than 50 years old and the facade needs improvement or the roof needs to be replacement, if you are in a rehabilitation, if you're designated as that your property meets the criteria, then you can work with the township to get that and then improve your property. And that's what it does. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, that's.
Good, thank you, because it's a good definition, the way people can understand
Right.
it.
And then again, if there is a property owner who wants to sell it to a developer who's developing the neighboring property, they obviously can do that. So
So it's similar to what we did on, by Miller School there?
yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now are we just taking any action?
No action on that
No
tonight.
action.
That would be action on that when the public hearing is scheduled in March.
So we have these resolutions. The first one is 12-2022P Alfieri. And these are the resolutions as a result of the action taken by the planning board.
Yes, just Ms. Chairwoman, the Alfieri, the first resolution on is a resolution memorializing the board's denial of the application that was heard at the December 8th planning board meeting.
Okay, do we have a motion and somebody who was there?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Mr. De Palma, second.
I'll second.
Mr. Lenny?
Yes.
And
Mr.
then
Mamak?
you'd only vote if you were there.
Mr. Mamakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Abstain.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon?
I have to change to an abstain.
I think I wasn't there.
Thought I was here, watch this.
Okay. Okay, I'll abstain. I don't think I was at that meeting. Um, Okay, and then the second one is 37-2022P Segme Range. Do we have a motion from someone that was there?
Move it.
This is to,
I'll second it.
okay, roll call?
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
No.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Abstain.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon?
Yes. And this last one is 56-2022P Sigme JBM. You have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, second, roll call, please.
Mr. Lenning?
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis?
Which one is this? What are we on?
This was the Segme JBN. This is the second segment, it was the second Segme application we heard on the special meeting on December 5th. It was for a motion to approve.
I was there. I'm going to abstain because I don't recall if I was
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
Abstain.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon?
Yes.
Can you change my last vote to abstain, the one prior to?
Yep.
I believe I wasn't here.
Okay, now, is Woodhaven here?
I assume so. I see, it looks like they have, there's jackets and suitcases. They might be in the hallway.
Oh,
We're ready for the Woodhaven.
okay. No,
Uh-oh.
to be here, you don't get
I'm jealous of his hair. I'm jealous of his hair.
if you don't want it. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure how that. Okay, we have application, you ready? Application 43-2021P, Woodhaven Village Incorporated, for major preliminary site plan, certified complete 2/17/2021, expiration date 3/31/2023.
Excuse me, if I could just stop you. I think your mic's not on. If you can just press the button until it turns green. You might have, there it
Oh,
goes.
there we go.
Just want to make sure we get you.
Yep, just to repeat it for the record, Ron Shemanowitz from the firm of Hutton Shemanowitz, here on behalf of the applicant Woodhaven Village, Inc. As the chair stated, we're before you with another portion of the overall Woodhaven GDP. The relief we're seeking tonight is a preliminary and final major site plan approval. The property in question involves two lots. It's block 22001.22, lot 2, and block 22001, lot 3. The subject property is in your ED04 zone, and the property is approximately 35 acres in size. The proposal is for two buildings, each of 36,000 square feet of flex space, which you'll hear more about the use from our witnesses. In addition to the site plan approval we're seeking, we do recognize that it would be appropriate to consolidate the two lots. We have no objection to that, so if the board thinks that's appropriate, we certainly be willing to do that to make the two lots into one. There is a design waiver we're seeking tonight, you'll hear about. That's for parking stall size. And just by way of preview, we have several witnesses with us tonight. Bill Life is well known to the board. He's to my right. He's with the applicant. Our site engineer is Sharif Ali from Amertech. Our architect tonight is Rick Pratt from Pratt Design. Also with us are Dan DeSario, our traffic engineer if needed, and Rob Larson, our planner if needed. But Bill, Sharif Ali, and Rick Pratt, the architect, are our main witnesses. And with that brief introduction, unless there's any other housekeeping, I'd like to call my first witness.
Go ahead.
You have Mr. Ife sworn.
Yes. No, I was just going to swear him in. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Ife. I've been with Woodhaven Village for about 30 years now. And this is a part of the Old Town Center at Woodhaven Village. We call it OC2, Office Commercial Parcel Number 2. It is proposed for, as Ron said, 2 buildings, 36,000 square feet each. The uses, or the zoning is ED04, and the uses that we propose are any of our permitted uses in ED04 zone. We're not looking for any kind of variances for uses. And we're looking for uses in the category of light industrial and flex space. The location kind of speaks to this. We have retail down the block at Woodhaven Plaza and Texas Road Plaza, and this is a different use to complement those. If you could put the overall plan, I guess, up on the screen. The black and white, the black and white.
Overall
That's-
layout exhibit, it should be
That's the
one of one.
That's the one. Okay. The property has frontage on,
Bill, before you go on, is that from the plan set, or do we need to mark that? Is that a new exhibit?
we need to mark that.
Okay, so if you can identify it, we're going to mark that as Exhibit A1.
I'm sorry. Which was when we marked Exhibit A1?
Bill's going to tell us what it is right
Okay.
now. If you could give us the title and date and what that exhibit is, Bill.
The exhibit to be marked A1 is called Overall Layout. So that's the wrong one up on the screen. It is prepared by Amertech Engineering. It is dated. It's dated January 24th, 2023. It's basically a line drawing of the proposed layout of the site, which fronts on Texas Road, has a stormwater basin on the left or west side, has 2 buildings, 36,000 square feet each, and parking on the front and sides, and a truck area in the rear. It fronts on Texas Road, and Texas Road was widened by Woodhaven several years ago. So the improvements to Texas Road that this normally would have needed have already been done. We have a light at the corner of McLean Street and another light at Woodhaven Boulevard on the other end of Texas Road. The buildings themselves are 36,000 square feet, and they are demisable or subdividable into as many as 6 tenant spaces. So the possibilities are you could have up to 6,000 square foot users or 1 36,000 square foot user, depending on the tenant. This is a speculative building. We do have people that are interested in this in the category of plumbers, electricians, carpenters. Our landscaper would like one of the whole buildings. And those are the kind of uses that we're talking about here. In addition to that, we were thinking about if we got someone interested, someone who would assemble cabinets, things like that. Not restaurants, certainly not a last mile distribution center. As far as mini warehousing goes, the buildings are too small to be a warehouse, and the buildings are not designed to be a warehouse. A modern warehouse for distribution is a cross-loader. We've done those, where you have dock doors on both sides of the building. The large trucks come in on one side. The shipments are broken down. The 100 TV sets that are on the large truck come into the building, they're broken down, and 5 TV sets each go out on the smaller trucks, and they go out to the distributors. That is not what we're doing here. I think any concerns about that, and I understand that there could and should be concerns about that, for any use that we have here, we're not looking for any conditional or variance use. We will come to the zoning officer, and we will say, sir, we propose to have a plumber and his shop here. He wants 2 units, he wants 12,000 square feet. Please confirm that that's a permitted use or not. And then if the zoning officer agrees that it's a permitted use, away we go. If not, we find somebody else. So we're not putting in restaurants or bowling alleys or dance studios or any of those kind of things. I guess that's the overview of the project. I'd like to quickly go through the review that your engineer and planner did. And they asked a lot of very good questions. And there's a series of variances that they said
Bill, just to be clear, this is the review letter from ERI dated January 24th, 2023.
Yes.
Please continue.
Just to clarify, it's actually a joint review letter from ERI and the Township of Old Bridge Planning Department.
Thank you.
I just want to give Vina her credit, too.
I didn't see the logo on the left-hand side. Absolutely.
The planner and the engineer's review of the plans picked up a few items that we will be correcting so that we don't need variances. Things like landscaping and some landscaping around and fencing around trash enclosures. Garage doors not exceeding 10 feet in height. We intend to comply with the ordinance and not seek any variances for those. We need evergreen plantings again around the trash enclosures. And electric charging, which is something new. We showed 6 electric charging stalls. The ordinance actually calls for more than that, so we'll put in 10. And 5 and 5, 5 on one building, 5 for the other building, and one of the 5 on each building will be a 13-foot wide spot, which is suitable for an ADA use. So it'll be 8 regular spots for electric and 2 ADA spots for electric, 10 total, split 5 and 5 to be fair to both buildings. So there won't be any variances because we will comply with the ordinance instead of asking for a variance. As far as design waivers go, we do have one, and that is for parking stall size. Ron mentioned that a minute ago. The parking stall size required by ordinance is 10 foot wide by 20 foot deep, which is a standard that's been around for years and years and years. Typically, in a commercial location now, you'll see parking spaces that are 10 feet wide, so that the in and out of the car traffic, such that it is, people aren't squeezing in and out. They have all the width, but 18 feet deep instead of 20 feet deep, because cars aren't that big anymore. So that is one that we would be requesting. As a point of information, residential parking lots are in the residential site improvement standards, and obviously this is a commercial site, but residential spots that you're used to in a parking lot are 9 by 18, and we're asking for a 10 by 18. To accommodate the 2 foot extra, we have the sidewalks are 2 foot wider than they would have been. So if a car is parking and overhanging the sidewalk by 2 feet, we still have a 4 foot sidewalk left because the sidewalk is 6 feet wide. Further in the letter.
Well, before you move on further, I just want to double check.
Ron reminded me about sidewalks on Texas Road.
It's the second, number 2 called out design waiver in the review letter.
We have put a sidewalk between McLean Street, which is on the left, past the detention basin, to the site. So you can walk from Woodhaven Village to this site. We have not put a sidewalk along the frontage where you see the parking in the front on Texas Road. And there's 2 reasons there. The big reason is because that's all wetlands. And DEP doesn't let you put sidewalks or anything in wetlands if they don't have to. The second reason is because we did the Texas road improvements under a tri-party agreement with the town and the county several years ago, and in that agreement, all the off-track improvements were specified and laid out, and at that time, it was agreed that sidewalks would not be required. Any other additional improvements would not be required in front of OC2, and there was a second site that escapes me right now, but in front of OC2. So that was decided some time ago in an agreement with the town and the county. And if we could put them there with wetlands, we would, but DEP won't let us do it. There is a sidewalk all the way to the far building on the right, but you have to come into the site. It's almost like, I'm going to say like Walt Disney's layouts where you don't have a sidewalk necessarily on the street itself, but you can get from one side to the other of something because you come into the site. So you can get anywhere on foot on a sidewalk from Woodhaven around this entire site.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so does that mean that is another design waiver that's being requested as part of this, since it can't be provided, or, and that you just provided the testimony to justify it?
If it's formally a design waiver, I believe in the ordinance itself, there is a section that says county and state roads will be done under the county and state road standards. I have an application into Middlesex County at the moment. In fact, I spoke to their planner today about it. If the board considers it a formal design waiver, then yes, I would.
I was going to say, maybe just to be safe, we'll include that as part of the request in any
Certainly.
approval, if
Certainly.
granted. Okay.
That's fine. The rest of the comments in the joint review letter, we will conform to all the requests made by the engineer and the planner. There are a few comments that request a testimony. So I just want to go over a couple of those right now to make sure that we respond appropriately to the letter. There's a question about the front facades of the buildings are not adequately articulated.
You could call out the item in the letter, that'll be helpful.
I'm looking at number 22. 22 comments on the facades of the buildings not being adequately articulated. The ordinance says that the building has got to be broken up so that there is not a long, plain front on the building. To the extent that we have to increase the setbacks and the recesses, we will do that. There is another comment, number 23, about proposed improvements within a wetlands buffer. Woodhaven Lot 2 is part of an amended administrative consent order with the DEP that we've been operating under for a number of years. As part of that consent order, Woodhaven donated a large tract of land in Jefferson Township, I think $1.5 million to wetland mitigation to the state, and deed restricted most of the rest of Woodhaven Village. And for that, Woodhaven was allowed to fill a certain amount of wetlands, and part of that required us to still maintain a 10-foot buffer from existing wetlands. So you'll see on the plan that sometimes the wetland seems closer to the curb than you're used to seeing, but that's because of the 10-foot provision in the AACO. On Lot 3, it's not part of the AACO, so that's a standard transition averaging plan transition averaging plan approval we need to get from DEP. Both properties have wetland line approvals where the lines are from DEP, and both properties have flood hazard area verifications. There was another comment about number 25, about a 24-foot drive aisle in the rear of the two buildings. My traffic engineer can expand on this, but a standard 2-foot a standard two-lane road is 24-foot wide lanes. So we believe that that's perfectly adequate for one truck to pass one direction, one truck to pass the other direction. Okay. Is that it? One more comment was about, would we be willing to bank some of the parking if we didn't need it?
Which item are you referring to, Bill?
I'm looking at numbers, I believe it is 76.
Okay, thank you.
No, not 76, no.
Okay,
78, excuse me, 78.
thank you.
And yes, we would be willing to do that. We'd like to talk to the engineer about how much and where, but yes, we would be willing to do that to the satisfaction of your professionals. I think that's all that I have.
Well, other than the special items that you commented on, the applicant's position is that we will comply with the remainder of the items, is that correct?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes,
Nothing further?
yes.
All right.
Okay. Vina, do you have anything that you wanted to?
Mr. Rife, I know you mentioned that these two buildings are for flex space or for contractors, electricians, to be specific, or professionals who want to rent this space. And you said it will not be a recreation center, or it will not be a dance hall or a gymnasium. Why would you want to restrict yourself? I mean, just think about it. The zone allows it. And the reason I say that is you have the space. If you put in a use that triggers, and I know why you're saying it, you're trying to say it to present it to the board that there'll be less traffic, less parking, but I wouldn't say you should restrict it because there are residences nearby. What if at some point there is a demand for a karate place or a gymnasium? You would have to come back to the board if there is a parking variance regardless.
Right.
But I would say you should be open to whatever uses are permitted in the zone. I understand your proposal is for flex space, and you should present the board with that. However, you shouldn't say that, we will not put gymnasium. I get what you're saying, but you're tying yourself into, not putting in those uses. You don't know what future awaits, right?
I appreciate the comment, and we are trying to minimize the traffic to the extent that we can find tenants that are lower traffic users than
I
than
understand.
others. But I appreciate the comment, and I agree that if we have a use that requires more parking, I must come back to the board for that, and then the board will approve it or not.
That is correct.
So to Vina's point, the applicant is not proposing to restrict its uses.
Right.
We're proposing all uses allowed in the EDO4 zone, correct?
Yes.
Because the uses you're looking for, right, they are in operation during the day. In the evening, after 5 o'clock, those operations, there's no activity on the site, right? What if you find a tenant who wants to conduct a class there? Those have evening operation hours. You will still need a parking variance. You will have to come back and justify it to the board. However, they have different peak times. So I wouldn't say you should tie yourself into a particular use. Your proposal for now is flex space, but I wouldn't put it in a resolution that we will not be putting a gymnasium. We will not put in.
Just leave it open.
I agree. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, and Vina, did you, and I apologize when you came over to speak to me before, was there another question regarding the,
Yes, Mr. Shimanowitz, I know you and I had spoken, and we did involve Joe too. So so that the board understands, and you put it on record as well, the application was filed when one of the parcels was in OC2 based on GDP. The other parcel was R120. However, we went ahead and we created a zone. And I just want to explain it to the board how this transpired. With our GDPs, right? We have the Oaks, we have Woodhaven. What we are coming across is some of these areas was designated per GDP. However, there were no bulk standards written for these. And the biggest challenge is posed by the zoning office, because now what happens is you have these huge single-family homes that are approved, that are constructed, but the impervious coverage was lesser than the building coverage. Or we have OC2, which did not have any bulk standards. Now, when I tell the homeowner, you bought this home, but now you can't put a patio, you can't put a swimming pool, because that triggers a variance. We have a lot of angry residents. So what we have been doing is we have been going in front of the council, creating bulk standards which are reasonable. So I started off with this one because it was a vacant parcel, and Mr. Ife had reached out to me saying, okay, what are the standards that I apply? And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, I have been trying to clean up and create standards. Let me start with this one first. And that's how we created EDO4. I will be in front of the council with numerous other ordinances just to have the bulk standards in place. We have similar challenges with the older cluster developments as well. So I will be writing ordinances with bulk standards for those as well. So this application was filed and it was an aftermath. So we went back, we created the zone. What the challenge we had is typically when a zone change happens, then the new zone standards apply. But because this application was prior to the zone change, the option lies with the applicant whether they choose to go by the old standards or the new ones. And Mr. Shimanowitz chose to follow the new standards for obvious reasons.
And I can confirm that. That's exactly right. And Vina summarized the history of that perfectly.
Chairwoman Ken, may I make a suggestion? Can we possibly bring up a view of where the shopping center is, maybe an earth view, so some of our members can see exactly where it's located?
We don't have that.
And the comments that Vina had made are quite clear of utilizing all of the uses as you can, because from the economic development standpoint, I do get people looking for dance studios and so on in the new flex type of space. Thank you.
Did you have any more comments?
That's their existence.
Gina? What are you doing?
This is the light.
So to Ms. Mamakis, so for folks that are listening or even folks here, so if you're coming down Route 9, this proposed development is on the left-hand side prior to the commercial development that's there now. So it's the light before, right?
It's Texas.
I'm sorry, Texas Road from Route 9,
Nine is.
Going towards 520.
going towards 5, yes.
Yes.
On the left-hand side,
You'll hit this one first.
yes.
This is the intersection before the shopping center.
Yes,
And after the main entrance to Woodhaven.
yes.
Is this the last piece left in the Woodhaven development?
There's still more.
It never
There's section 3. Section 3 needs a final, and Estates 2 needs an amended preliminary and final, but this is the last, yeah, this is the last new one.
Okay, Rakesh, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Madam Chair, I don't have anything for Mr. Reif.
Oh, okay. The board have any questions of this witness? Okay, yes.
Could you go back to that other drawing they just had up there showing the whole site? The aerial one that Mr. Mack has asked for.
Let's just identify, this hasn't been marked yet as an exhibit, so maybe can we just identify what this is and have it, we'll mark it?
Bill, if you can tell us what that is, we'll mark it as Exhibit A2.
Exhibit A2 is titled Overall Layout with Aerial Exhibit. It's prepared by Amertech Engineering, and it is dated January 24th, 2023.
Okay, Bill, my question is, how far down does the property go? I guess we're looking on the southerly line.
How far?
You have two lines that are running parallel. I'd like to know which one is the property line. Yeah.
Those lines? The interior of the two lines is a 100-foot setback. So the distance between the two lines in the back is 100 feet.
Okay,
And
and
the rear one, or the lower one is the property line, and the one above that is a 100-yard rear yard setback.
okay, now the rest of that property is unusable?
On the other side of that, it's not parcel OC2, that's part of Woodhaven Section 2, and that is mostly wetlands, and in fact, the property in the back of the buildings is mostly wetlands.
Yeah, that's
So
what I was.
that whole area stays the way you see it.
And west of that building is,
West of the building and west of that stormwater basin, that's all wetlands also. That's all
Okay.
wetlands and open.
Okay.
So there'll be nothing else built around that.
okay, thank you.
Does anybody from the board have a question? Yes.
How many stories are the buildings proposed?
I had,
And what is the setback compared to the strip mall off of, at the intersection of Texas and Murray?
say that again?
How many stories are the two 35,000 square foot buildings?
There'll be one story.
Okay. And what is the setback compared to the setback of the existing strip mall at Murray in Texas?
The setback on these buildings are, the front yard setback on these buildings is 95 and a half feet.
So there'll be clearance and they'll be quite visible from Texas Road.
On Texas Road, they will kind of be shielded because there's a 25-foot buffer in the front between Texas Road and the parking lots. And again, that's all wetland. That area is a wetland, and where it's not a wetland, we just extended it to have it a uniform buffer.
And the access will not be from McLean. There'll be two added driveways, I see?
There's two driveways to Texas Road.
So, yeah, just to clarify, unfortunately, a few years back, Texas Road was not widened. It is a one-lane road each way, 50 miles an hour with no divider. What was done a few years back, where there was intersections with lights added, and at those intersections, a turning lane was added in the middle. So we're talking about potentially trucks making turns onto and off of this property at intersections without lights. Don't you think it would be safer to have the access from McLean so cars and trucks can safely turn off of Texas and then access the development?
And access off McLean would have required a wetland individual permit. And on Texas Road at McLean, there is a light. So when that light turns red, a truck can come out
If
because
it wants
traffic
to.
stops.
It doesn't have to.
We're not anticipating having that many trucks. Again, it's not a warehouse.
So this is not tractor trailer, it's just box
There
trucks?
may be the occasional tractor trailer if somebody gets a delivery of a bunch of cabinets or something, but it is not tractor trailers. It's not a warehouse situation where you've got a bunch of tractor trailers.
So there's been a few fatalities on Texas Road since those so-called improvements have been made. So I'm glad to see it's on the east side of McLean rather than the west side, because cut off on that map, there's like that dead man's curve. It's totally a blind curve. That's where the previous fatality occurred. So no plans to widen it at those turnoffs?
No. And the fundamental reason, the fundamental constraint there is it's all wetlands.
Both sides? North and
Both sides.
south?
On the other side, yeah, both east and west.
No, north and south of Texas, so it's not like it could, a shoulder or anything could be added.
When we did this a few years ago, we went down to DEP and we tried to get it as wide as we could, and that's.
I know it's a county road, so there's limited ability to impact. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the board have any questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ive.
Actually, just to, and I'm not sure if there is any members of the public, but we just need to open it up.
Oh,
to members of
okay.
the Public of questions of Mr. Ive.
Does anybody from the public have any questions or comments? And did you have any from the fire department? No, I don't have any. Okay. Okay, you're dismissed.
Thank you.
Our next witness is our site engineer, Sharif Ali. We have Mr. Ali sworn.
Yes, would you please, when you're prepared, raise your right hand? And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Sure. I graduated from NJIT back in '85, received my license in '89. Since then, that's all I do for a living, site plans, subdivisions. I've been before your board a number of times.
We'll accept
before
your
for
credentials.
COVID, during COVID, yeah. Thank you. Well, I wish I have Mr. Ives in every application that I present before planning board. Seems like he took the bulk of explaining everything, and he left me with nothing, basically.
If you could take the board through just an overview of the site plan, because you really didn't touch upon that.
Yeah.
Maybe just address the basic engineering, sewer, water drainage, and that probably gets us in a good spot.
Yeah, so you heard the site location with respect to McLean and Route 9. We are on the eastbound. You also heard that the site is proposed for 2 buildings, flex building, each one 36,000 square feet. You heard also that we have 2 access driveways into the site with full operation. Each one of them will have 40-foot radius, as well as the drive aisle for the parking, for the driveway 30 feet wide that should be able to get a truck off the road pretty quick because of the concern. Our drive aisles on site, typical 24 feet, with the exception of the area that the trucks moving in and out the site, the all 30 feet. With the exception, the area, as Mr. Ive talked about, is the area in the rear. It's 24 feet. And that area in the back was meant to be for just connectivities between the 2 facilities. You heard that we have employees, customer, visitors parking spaces, 10 by 18, where the standards out there is 9 by 18. So we do have 10 by 18, and that will be a design waiver, as we stated before. We do have 176, I believe, 167 parking spaces. On the plan shows 168, but one of them will flip into an AV, electrical vehicle. You heard that we will be providing 10 spaces of electrical vehicle, where the ordinance required 9. We also have 8 spaces will be fully dedicated for ADA, as mandated by the federal government. So that's pretty much our site layout. The area in the front exclusively is being laid out for employees, customers, and visitors. There's a few spaces between the building. There's a few spaces on each side of the buildings for employees and extra spaces. You also heard about we are willing to bank some of the spaces to turn them green, and if they are needed, we'll use them. You heard about the sidewalk in the area in front of the building is about 10 feet wide. The area outside the building 6 feet to allow for the extra 2 foot of the extension of a car if it goes over the sidewalk. The area in the back of the building, we really didn't talk about it too much, but that is the loading area with the loading docks, 6 tenants at maximum in each one of the building, and each one will have a loading dock. So you're talking about 6 on each one, total 12, and meets the ordinance requirement. The bicycle spaces, we are providing 12. What's needed is 10 space. We also have 3 signs on site. 2 of them are ID signs, just to give the visitors idea of where they are on site, and they're located right in front of the middle of each one of the building. And the main sign is the freestanding sign. That is on the first driveway coming from west and heading east, nearby the detention basin. That freestanding sign is about 126 square feet, 18 feet high, and it meets the ordinance requirement. You heard about the building setback from the street. It's about closer to 100 feet, exactly 95.5. And the reason for that the area in the front contains wetlands. And there was some discussion about the the site that we have close to 36 acres, but the area that is being developed is very tiny along the Old Texas Road. So just to give you an idea of, it's a very small scale. The floor area ratio permitted in the zone is 0.35, 0.35. We're not even 0.05. Very, very tiny area for floor area. The minimum landscaping permitted in the ordinance, the minimum that we can give is 0.4, which is like 40%. We are giving 84%, 0.84. So it's, again, no bulk requirement is needed from the EDO-4 zone. The only design waiver that you heard about it is just for the 10 by 18 parking space. So we are fully complied with the ordinance. And I'm going to stop talking about the parking and the layout, and we'll go into our site improvements. So our site improvement consists of a stormwater facility, consists of landscaping and lighting and dumpsters in the area of the back of the building. There is 4 dumpsters all the way in the back of the 2 facilities. Our detention basin is to the left as you're looking at the site, which is east of the 2 buildings. And the facility, the basin will basically handle the storm water. And it's been way oversized to handle what is needed, what's required. Just to give you some boring numbers here. The 2-year storm that we allow to discharge is about 9 CFS, cubic feet per second. We are a lot less than that. The 10-year storm is the same thing. The 100-year storm So we are well below what is needed, so we are in compliance with our storm with respect to water quality and the reduction of storm. When I say reduction of storm, is the 2, the 10, and 100, and you've probably been hearing about that a lot lately. So part of our storm facility, the typical underground pipes, catch basin, inlets, if you want to call them inlet or catch basin, and the underground. Everything will be captured, going into the detention basin, and released at less than what is permitted, way less than what is permitted. That's our, pretty much our storm water management on site, our grading, as well as the stormwater, any items in the report, we will address and comply with. So there is no problem there. We also have a landscaping, and we have a lighting plan. Our landscaping is a typical landscaping for this type of facilities. Low shrubs, medium size, high, evergreen, street trees. We received your staff report. We have our own selections. We received your staff report, as well as Mr. Lavallo, and we'll address all the items and we'll comply with all the items. So that's pretty much all I have. There is the site, the 2 buildings will be served by electric, gas, sewer, water. So connection to water system in Woodhaven will be to the east and also to the back area. Sewer lines likewise will be connected to McLean. So it's the whole, the facility is pretty much, will have everything under the sun as far as utilities. So that's all I have, and you heard me saying that we will comply with each and every one of the items in our report.
Okay, thank you. Vina, did you have anything?
Actually, if I can just jump in real quick, one of the suggestions from the board is that, and I believe the attorney addressed it earlier, is that the lots be consolidated. Can you maybe just provide a little testimony of where the lot lines currently are? And, I mean, consolidating, we know what that means. It would all become one lot, but if you can just kind of identify where they exist now, and maybe that would kind of help explain why the board is looking for it to be consolidated.
Yeah, so on tax map, your tax map, the township tax map, you will see we have 2 lots. Lot 2 in block 22001.22 and lot 3 in block 22001. So we do have 2 lots. Lot 3 is the lot in the middle of the site. It's a little tiny lot.
And just you're looking, what you referred to, just for the record purposes, that's sheet 3 of the site plans that were submitted?
That will be.
Oh. Oh, that's Exhibit A1, I'm sorry, okay.
Or you can call it sheet 3 of 22, yeah. So consolidation is no more than just taking the 2 lots and put them in one, prepare a description, and file it at the county with a deed.
Thank you. Sorry.
So consolidation is pretty much the opposite of doing a subdivision.
Vina, did you have anything?
Not really. I just want to make one comment. Would you be willing to work with us on the landscape plan? Should the
Absolutely.
board act favorably? I know you mentioned the sign, but there were no details for the sign. Should the board act favorably, that would be one of the conditions that you supply us with the signage details. I do want to say that we would hate to see a pylon sign. So we would love to see a monument sign which is aesthetically pleasing with some landscaping around it, some indirect lighting, ground-mounted lighting instead of internally illuminated lights. Thank you.
Something that looks nice, like the Woodhaven signs that you see out there.
Consistent to what he was saying. And that's all on my end, Rakesh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did get a chance to actually have a pretty lengthy meeting with Mr. Ife and his team earlier I guess it was earlier this week, seems like a long time ago, to discuss all the comments in our letter, and I can concur that the applicant is able to comply with all the items in our review memo, and they won't result in anything substantially different than what you see on the screen, just some items of cleanup. A few things I just do want to discuss is we talked about banked parking, so we would need to indicate where that banked parking is, and I guess for the board's benefit, when we talk about banked parking, it's really parking that you're approving that the applicant won't necessarily construct initially. It'll be designed, the stormwater management system will be designed, all the details will be there for it to be constructed, but it would get constructed in the future when the applicant or the township, feel that it's necessary or needed at some future time. So which parking are we talking about banking?
I believe, and this is Bill Ife again, I believe that the review letter was talking about the lot in between the two buildings.
That's the lot that we were talking about, but I just want to make sure you concur with that, or if you had an alternative that we'd want to get that on the record.
No, I concur with that. I do
Okay.
concur with that. And in addition, if there were any other places, we would work those out with you also.
Yeah, I'm willing to work with the applicant to indicate those areas. And again, that's just parking that won't get constructed initially, but will be there in case the township decides it's needed. The township could basically compel the developer to construct it, or the developer could construct it in the future at his own. Sure.
Board members, this is just to add on to what Rakesh is trying to say. In Old Bridge, you have come across like a sea of parking lot, and I've often said it to the board that if we don't need it, we shouldn't have that impervious coverage. It is on my list of things to do is to update the parking ordinance, but in the interim, I think bank parking helps us, because if we don't need that parking, they can be banked, and in future, if tenancy changes or should there be a need for more parking, only then those parking spaces would be created. And that is why we made that recommendation to the applicant.
And then one other item that I think we should, maybe I want to discuss, the applicant has provided all the testimony that we requested in our review memo, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions the board may have. But the one thing I did want to talk about was the tree replacement. I know Mr. Lavallo has a memo that speaks to tree replacement, and we actually had a few comments in my review memo. And Mr. Rife reminded me, since it's been a few years since we've all gathered to discuss Woodhaven, this development is governed by quite a few historical documents: the original GDP, the redevelopment agreement the developer's agreement for the GDP, which goes back to 2011, and then also a tri-party agreement that was entered into between the township, the developer, and the county. The reason I mention that is because all three of those documents refer to improvements and requirements the developer has, and it's clearly stated in those documents that the developer is not obligated to pay any compensatory planting fees. It basically states that the developer will work with the township planner to, I guess, selectively clear the site so that there's no excessive clearing beyond what's required for the development. But it specifically states there's no additional contribution on top of all the other contributions the developer has made and all the improvements the developer has made with regard to compensatory trees. And the same goes for improvements along Texas Road as well. The tri-party agreements laid out the improvements that were to be constructed, and it limited the future construction to those items specifically stated. So that's all I have as far as my direct testimony to offer. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Anybody have any questions? Okay.
So when
Mr. Hurt.
for the park,
Your microphone.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, I wasn't going to. I was going to call him Mr. Hurt, but.
for the bank parking, right?
Yes.
They don't, by doing that, they don't need to come in front of the board again.
They do not.
They only have to go to you
They
know,
would only go to Nicole,
whatever
basically.
Permit
Yeah,
process.
they would go to Nicole and Bina.
Okay.
I can address it right now. We received a memo from Mr. Hart, fire review, and all of his comments will be incorporated into the plan. So we agree we'll comply with that 100%.
That was easy.
Chairwoman,
All right.
Chairwoman, I have one last question. I think, and it was something we probably missed, but the ordinance requires that when you have more than 20 parking spaces, there be a landscape island after every 10 spaces. Would you be willing to work with us?
Yes. Yes.
It is a requirement.
I thought it was 20 spaces, but if it's 10, it's
If the
10.
parking lot is more than 20, then you're required after 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I was trying to pull it up, but I couldn't.
No, I thought the requirement was, yes, you have to have islands, but you could not have a string of parking spaces more than 20. Every time you had 20 spaces, you had to put an island in.
Before the end of the
But
hearing, I will make sure I'll get you that section. It's just that,
we have plenty of parking spaces, so to
That
put
is
the
correct.
islands instead of a parking space is no problem.
that is correct,
Yes.
because I see a row of parking, and that is something that just,
I understand, and we're able to do it, and we will do it. We'll
Sure.
we'll satisfy it.
sure. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else from the board? Otherwise, anybody from the public have any comments or questions of this witness? Okay.
Thank you, Sharif. Thank you. Our next witness is our architect, Mr. Rick Pratt.
Yeah, that's what I'm measuring. I want everything to 20 parking spaces.
All right, when you're ready, if you would please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I graduated Drexel University in 1990 with a degree in architecture. I've been practicing architecture since then, and licensed in the state of New Jersey, current license. Testified before this board, but a long time ago, for the Old Bridge YMCA.
Okay, thank you.
I own Pratt Design Studio. I didn't sign the drawings. Somebody from my staff did, but.
All right, we'll accept it. Good.
Rick, before you get rolling, are you going to utilize exhibits that are not part of the
This is 28.
architectural plans that were submitted? No?
This was submitted.
We, no need to mark them.
Absolutely. No need to bark.
Excellent. I'm going to turn it over to you. Could you give the architectural proposal for the application?
Okay.
So,
Changing?
clarification, I'm told that the exhibits we submitted electronically that are going to be up on the screen are slightly modified to show a little jog in the building, so we ought to mark those.
Okay.
So as you go through, Rick, we're going to have to mark,
It's not the jog in the building,
Oh,
it's
it's-
doors in the back.
I'm
but
sorry.
Either way,
Doors in the back, but there's a change, so it
Yeah.
needs to be marked. My mistake. So if you want to identify the plans that are going to be up on the screen, and we can start with Exhibit A3.
you want to do them as a group or
You can do them as you
individually?
go. You go, I don't want to interrupt your flow, so do them as you present.
Okay. So sheet SD1 is building one floor plan, 36,000 square feet. And it shows a potential of 6 tenants, but those dividing walls between the tenant spaces aren't necessarily going to be there day one, depending on the tenant. So,
Yeah, SD1 will mark as Exhibit A3.
so the front of the building, or the road side of the building is upward, is up to the top. And the rear has one loading dock door that's 9 by 10 and one personnel door with a stair per potential tenant. That's pretty much it for the plan. Then SD2, which is building 1, which is the elevations and a 3D diagram, shows the facades of the building. The front facade and the sides are broken up in a way to kind of cut down the mass of the building, both in color and in texture. The height changes a little bit from potential tenant to tenant. And then there's at the corners, there's an entrance with glass that wraps around to one side. So the idea here is that we have one tenant for the whole building. We're not going to put in windows and doors for everybody that may or may not come. So there's the ability for the future openings to be had, but they wouldn't necessarily be there unless a small tenant comes in.
And SD2, we're going to mark as Exhibit A4.
Okay. So we have, as you go the lower part of the building, there's some reveals, there's, like I said, texture changes, there's color changes, and we're trying to kind of make the building look, as one of the board members asked if it was 1 story or 2. It's 1 story, but we're trying to kind of make it look not so big, so that it's not that big, but just kind of cut down on the scale with the changes in patterns and some high windows, some clear story windows. So if people inside are using it for, I don't know, assembling widgets or something, that they have some sun from the outside. And the rear shows the loading. That's the second elevation from the bottom left. Shows the loading doors and the stairs and a couple color changes in the back.
That's it?
And then SD3 is, what's your exhibit?
This is the Exhibit A5.
It's basically everything I said for SD1, but building 2, and the same goes for SD4. Now the buildings are kind of flipped left to right. So if you go to SD4, the bottom left elevation has a corner that's dark with kind of a tall corner window piece, whereas on building 1, it's on the opposite side. We're trying to make it look like it's, smaller buildings that were kind of built over time that we're not just repeating. They're, I don't know, it's not, I'm going to say it's like a little town, but it's not. People aren't going to like what I say. So it's to break it up and kind of make them look different.
Anything further, Rick, on the architecture?
No?
Thank you.
Rena, did you?
I like the fact that although it's a flex space and it's a taller building, although it's 1 story, and I like the fact that you're breaking it up by adding those architectural elements. My only concern is with the building material, the facade, and I think should the board act favorably, I would like to work with you on the facades, only because we're trying to look for consistency with building types within the town with the newer buildings. So I would love to work with you on those.
Sure.
During compliance phase. Thank you so much.
Okay, anyone from the board have any questions?
Yeah, I have one
Yeah.
question.
Mr. Mamakis?
Why just loading docks instead of some drive-ins? Because we do see, like on White Oak Lane, we have a lot of loading docks. And it does create a challenge sometimes for that dance studio that might want, as we discussed. And then if somebody's going to take half the space, or part of it, I think drive-throughs, in some respects, even from maybe on the sides, where I think some of them have in White Oak Lane where there'd be a 10-foot door where they can drive in and bring product in, because not every electrician is going to use, I shouldn't say electrician, but not everybody's going to need a loading dock. And with flex space, and I'll address my comments later about flex space, which is good. I think that's needed, the drive-through portions. We had one flex space building that was built with just drive-throughs, and it's populated very quickly. So those are my concerns. It's just maybe on the sides. You can leave your loading docks in the back, but that's my thoughts from what I see out in the environment now. What people are
Right, yeah. Wouldn't want to necessarily put on the side, I don't think they're, unless we can make them blend in a little bit. But.
Those are just my comments.
If a tenant comes in and wants a drive-in,
Does that spark a variance or coming back to the board?
well, I don't know
Well,
if it's
coming to the
a
plan.
I mean, just practically speaking, you can get a precast ramp. But I don't know if the doors, we would have to change the door size maybe, but that's.
Yeah, I think it's advantageous because I do see a lot of, we even have another building in the back, has its loading docks and it has side doors to come in and they're a manufacturing company. So, just a suggestion. I'm not saying you do it, it's just a suggestion.
We appreciate it, we'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, I don't want, from a perspective of economic development, I'm trying not to hinder your space because if somebody comes and, whatever it might be, a dance studio or some kind of art studio,
You
want to
don't
be able
want
to
a
drive
dance
in.
studio, don't you?
We'll certainly offer that up. It's a good suggestion.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yes. What is the total elevation from sidewalk to the roof there?
On the side, the highest point is 39'6", but it varies. Changes in height about 2 feet. So from, along the front, from one piece to the other, it changes from 38 to 36. And then on the side, in the back, actually, it kind of just angles up a little bit, again, to break the height, but it's, that, not 39'6" is for a real short period of time.
All right. And what is, that's a common commercial height for one story?
Well, clear height is kind of tenant specific, but it should be plenty for what we're trying to do here.
Plenty for what you're trying to, all right, because earlier you stated it was one story. Is a common one story, isn't it one story on a high-rise 13 feet?
Yeah,
It's flex space, and if no, I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay,
It's
I'm asking you,
from-
you're the architect.
It's from the floor to the roof is one story. Some zoning ordinances will give, or, 2.5 stories or 45 feet, or whatever it is, but this is one story.
Lena,
And that's what it's zoned for?
can you, height requirements in a flex space, which is, the common flex space is like 32 foot clear in a flex space. If you have a medical type of facility who's storing product, they usually don't want to go up high to store product, which is medical, but it could be masks and stuff like that. So they're asking what the height is in there, but flex space,
I believe the zone allows 40 feet.
Yeah, I believe the zone allows, but I think the question is, it's a one-story building, and why is it so tall? The brokers told us that for flex space, for mini warehousing, anybody who is storing anything in the back, they'll put it on racks and they go up. And that to get tenants that should make it as, they wanted it higher than that. You have one-story warehouses that are 70 feet high, and they've got 50 some odd feet clear inside, and you can just picture the racks going up. We don't have that. We're on a much smaller scale, but the brokers told us that they wanted 32 foot clear inside the building, so that who's ever in there is able to store with their racks, forklifts and stuff like that. So that's what's driving it, is the brokers telling us.
Board members.
I believe allows 3-story and 40 feet.
Right. So, board members, the ordinance was not specifically written for flex space, right? It's an EDO4 which allows other uses too. And if you closely take a look at the uses that are permitted, it also allows recreational type of uses. So in those, like suppose if you have a sportsplex or if you have a badminton place, that requires a 40 feet. They need a clear height. So that's why the ordinance was written the way it was written. Also, with the door, I know there was some discussion about the overhead door size. We were trying to limit this use because when I first read about flex space, what I didn't want to do is a typical warehouse where you have trailers and bigger trucks pull into the site. So we wanted to limit it to smaller trucks, box type of trucks. So when discussing with our township attorney, we came up with this plan that maybe limiting the overhead garage doors to 10 feet would, force only smaller trucks into that property.
If you mind if I jump in there, as the economic development officer, I've studied flex space. I've been to flex spaces outside of Old Bridge, and something we need. But I looked at a building similar to this. Let's say it's 36,000 square feet. It was divided in 3 sections. One section was actually a woodworking company that actually made sets for CNN and all of the news media that you see on TV. The next, that's why I mentioned medical, was a medical facility that just stored medical products that got deliveries of it. And the third one, interesting enough, they would store the pods inside. The pod buildings, you see them on your driveway, they would store them inside, rack them up as high as they can go, and they had some outside as well. But that's why that 32-foot clear is what they're looking for out there. So I just want to give my opinion of it and what I've seen out there and why that's the size that's been offered to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, Eric?
So we were just discussing, so the back of the building where the garage doors are, right? So that's about 4 feet up, and then it's the garage for the loading dock?
Yes.
Or the loading
Yes.
door? Does that go right to slab, or, so,
Yeah, there goes right to slab.
Yes. No. It's a slab.
so
Right to the slab.
as you go in, it's 4 feet up in the back, and then it's all slab straight to the front of the building?
Yes.
So is this built in, so is this property, the front of the building higher than the back of the building from an elevation standpoint?
Yes.
Oh, it is, okay, so it's a slight downhill towards the wetlands in the back.
Yep.
Mr. Ives, since you're on the mic, I did confirm you would have to comply with the landscape islands.
Okay.
So, or else a variance would be required. So you agree to comply with the landscape islands?
No variances will comply.
Sure, thank you.
Yes.
So there's going to be a traditional loading dock in the back?
Yes.
There is a loading dock. So what's going to stop big trucks from coming back there?
In this kind of facility, there will probably be the occasional big truck to come in the back. If we get a larger tenant, we have 36,000 square feet, and we have somebody who's building sets or is building cabinets or things like that, we probably will get a tractor trailer once in a while. This is not and I'm distinguishing that from a distribution site where you have tractor trailers coming in and out all the time, and that's what you do. You bring stuff in, you rearrange it, and you bring it back out. This is, we bring raw materials or basic material in, and that might come in, even to a plumber, he might buy 30 water heaters. They may show up on a tractor trailer. That is another reason why we have the circulation around the building. We keep the trucks away from the cars. The trucks come in, go around the back, and go out the other way without going through the front parking lot. The size of the building does not really call for that much tractor trailers. We're certainly not encouraging them. We think we're going to get a lot of.
But there's a chance you might.
There's a chance we might, and then, but to be fair and honest, in a supermarket, in a residential area, when the moving van shows up, there's tractor trailers there, too. It's designed to be flex, not distribution.
Not aware.
So,
Okay, anybody else have any questions, comments? Anyone from the public? Okay. Do you have any more witnesses?
No, Madam Chair, unless the board has any other issues or questions, that's our presentation.
I have a question. When you're coming out of the parking lot, we've expressed that there's a need for traffic looking into it, only because Texas Road it's a pain in the ass to get through. Let me be honest with you. I've done it, right? And yeah, it's 50 miles an hour and cars zipping in and out, and I've seen cars go through that light either way. There has to be something that you can do to stop people from either making a left turn or stopping, but there has to be some kind of traffic control there. There has to be.
Turning lane, cars will get rear-ended. It'll block the whole Texas Road up. If one car's waiting to make a left in there, or a truck turning out.
And you can't tell me that they're going to wait for the red light, because it doesn't happen. Doesn't happen.
I think the question, is there a double line there?
there
In front of
is-
that?
I believe there is a double line.
Yeah, it shouldn't be able to cross it. Okay.
Do you have a traffic person?
We have the
We could
traffic
have our
person.
traffic engineer come forward and speak to it. if you wish.
Maybe he can come up with a solution.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please just identify yourself for the record.
Certainly. My name is Dan Disario. Last name is Disario. A licensed professional engineer, state of New Jersey. Have been accepted before hundreds of boards throughout the state as an expert in the field of traffic engineering, including this board.
Thank you.
Dan, you heard the concern from the board member.
I did, and I think it's a valid concern, and I think the applicant has done the best that we can do collectively in terms of the project team, given the constraints that we have to live with. This board's familiar with, but I'll reiterate, the Texas Road improvements, when we originally designed them and laid them out, we went to DEP and we wanted to do more, and frankly, DEP said no. And the reason why they said no is because of wetland impacts. They wanted the wetland impacts to be minimized. That's not only the case in terms of this section of Texas Road, but I was also involved with the shops at Old Bridge, and the reason why Texas Road and Route 9 looks the way it looks, we wanted to do more in terms of the lanes along the Texas Road approaches, and DEP said no for the same exact reason. So given that constraint, we're doing the best we can. I will tell you that in the westbound direction, so when vehicles are waiting to make a left turn into either driveway, there is a center median. It's not divided, but it's striped. So it's got the yellow hatching down the middle. In addition, there is a shoulder on the westbound direction. So the combination of having that shoulder in the westbound direction, as well as that center striped gore area, if somebody is waiting to make a left turn into this site, they can occupy that center gore area, and that is a perfectly legal maneuver. You're allowed to make a left turn across double yellow and center gore areas for purposes of accessing sites, both into and out of sites. So there is additional room where if somebody wants to bypass somebody waiting to make a left turn into the driveways, you should be able to do that. Granted, if it's a large tractor trailer, you might not be able to get around a large tractor trailer. But respectfully, I can submit to you, this type of building that the applicant is seeking to put here is not going to generate a lot of tractor trailers. I would submit to you, again respectfully, I worked on a very similar building 15 years ago in North Brunswick. Flex-type building, actually that site's designed one-way circulation, and it's really designed only for single-unit trucks. And just to give you an idea of the actual tenants that are in that building, it's a countertop manufacturer and installer. It's an electrical contractor. And Vina's over there. In that flex building, they actually have a place where you can brew your own beer and make your own wine. So it's sort of more of like a retail operation. But all of them, relatively low activity in terms of traffic, and certainly none of those users in that building in North Brunswick generate any tractor trailers. Yeah, this gives you a good idea. This is not exactly the right section of Texas Road along our frontage, but you can see in the westbound direction, that's pretty consistent in terms of the shoulder that's available in the westbound direction. Eastbound direction, which is coming towards us, shoulder's not that wide, but in the westbound direction it is. If you look at the site plan where the driveways are located, particularly the one that's on the west end of the site, it's located along a section of Texas where there is a center stripe median, because that median is then transitioning into the left turn lane at the McLean Street intersection with the signal.
Will that be repainted to mimic that, to show it's a left turn?
No, there's not enough width.
So that's what we're looking at, so, okay.
If
And
you
just
get-
for the record, if I could, may I just, hold on, just for the record, that where the board is looking at on the screen, Google Map images of the section of Texas Road where the site is located.
And I think,
Yeah, it's barely enough room to pass.
just so it's clear, so we're looking at the right image. If you could put in McLean Street into Google Earth.
Was that light that we saw up ahead?
Yeah,
Is that McLean?
that's why I want to make sure we're all looking at the correct section of Texas, because this is not it right now.
So you're saying a car would sit in that candy stripe?
It can, yes, absolutely. Yes, it is.
So the other question
Could you
is-
take us to McLean Street, that intersection, and then work your way back?
So there may or may not be room to pass on the right, but going eastbound, there's clearly just one lane. So a truck, large, small, is going to have the turning radius to not go into oncoming traffic when they're making a right to exit that development.
Yes. Yes, the driveways have been designed so trucks could turn out without encroaching over the center line, correct? This is good. Yep. And then if you spin it 180 degrees, that's kind of representative of what somebody would have available to them heading in the westbound direction. And you only really need to look down at Texas Road Plaza, which is where the retail is. Now, granted, that ties into Murray Drive, and I understand that, but that also has two driveways along Texas Road in a very similar situation in terms of the availability of a center stripe median and full access into that retail development, where there are left turning movements both into and out of that development. And you were correct to point out, if we were closer to what you characterize as the suicide curve or the dead man's curve, I would not be sitting here before you and putting forth, it's a good idea to have driveways. But because we are farther east of McLean, we're away from that dead man's curve, there are clear sight lines as they relate to the proposed driveways, which is very important. Again, I respectfully submit to you that I believe the driveways as currently proposed and shown on the site plan will operate safely and efficiently. And as the board knows, we have to go through another level of review with the county, and they will be reviewing the adequacy of those proposed driveways as well.
So I have a question, I guess, maybe this is for Mr. Reif. The type of use we're talking about with the flex space, your tenants wouldn't be the ones with that kind of large vehicle, like a tractor trailer. It might be the occasional delivery that your tenants would get. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Would you be willing to put something into your lease that would maybe dictate the delivery times to be off-peak? So, because I think that it's a concern at all hours, obviously, but it's a greater concern during the peak hours when I've been on this road, because I go down to the turnpike using this road from here tonight, in fact. During the peak times is really when it becomes a bit precarious. So would you be willing to include maybe some sort of restriction in your lease for that?
I will address that with the people who do that, and to the extent we can, I would say yes.
I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure what that means.
We need to check with other responsible parties.
Okay, so you're not prepared to make that commitment this evening? Okay.
I will.
It's beyond our pay grade.
I will do what I can to do that, and I'll.
You'll make it happen.
I will do everything I can to make it happen.
I think, Mr. Ife, the board has quite a lot of concerns about the traffic, and I think for the board to be comfortable and to address their concerns, I think you should try to work that and maybe agree to.
Can you pinky promise?
Okay, that as.
It's not just for all deliveries, it's only for the trailers that come in. So we're not asking you to restrict yourself to the deliveries of the tenants. It's the occasional trailers that come in.
Tractor trailer
Tractor
deliveries.
trailers.
Well, and maybe if I may jump in, one of the ways we might be able to handle it, understanding that you might not have full authority right now to make that agreement, but if we make it if we make it as a condition of approval, and you can always come back to, if you don't have that authority or it turns out you can't do that, come back before the board for relief from that one condition. Because we do need to, we'll have to set what that actually is. What are those time periods? Are we doing it? I understand it would only be for, and I'm just thinking, preparing the resolution of compliance down the road, a zoning officer trying to enforce this. Right. What actually would that entail? I would say, it would be a limitation, from what I understand, a limitation on tractor trailer deliveries only, and we'd have to determine right now as to what that time period would be. What is that limitation are we talking about? Is it off, between what hours that it would be allowed, or what hours it wouldn't be allowed, or?
I mean, I was discussing with Rakesh, maybe one of the options also would be something similar to what we have been doing, like a post-construction thing. So after the CO is issued 1 year from that, maybe if we notice that these trailers are coming in during peak hours, the Director of Community Development, the township engineer, should have the authority to work with you guys and come up with stipulations.
And I just want to remind the board, again, respectfully, no such condition exists on Texas Road Plaza, where all the retail is. And I can tell you that retail is going to get and has a higher possibility of receiving tractor trailers and having tractor trailers coming in and out of a retail site versus the flex space that we're trying to put forth here. So, just keep that in mind in terms of a benchmark. You have a site right down the street that this applicant also developed with no such restriction.
But I think Texas Road Plaza has a light, doesn't it?
Murray. Yeah,
At Murray?
To Murray, yeah.
Murray does, but
Yeah.
it also has unsignalized or stop-control driveways. and-
It does, but it has that ability, is what we're saying, that to get out that way.
Agreed.
Okay, any other?
Any suggestions?
Do you want to just clarify? So, Eric, did you have something else?
I have a question for the traffic engineer. So when you said that you have to go in front of the county, right? Would the county give you, is it possible that they say you might have to widen this roadway and they would give you relief of that, or no? Or they would just be reviewing like the driveways, and you might have to make the driveway bigger?
It's not possible in terms of the widening of Texas Road. Is that you, Bill? Okay. And the reason is the county was a party to a
Yeah.
tri-party agreement
Okay.
that governed all the Texas road
So
improvements.
they made a decision X amount of time ago?
They didn't make that decision. The decision in terms of what governed the Texas road improvements was made by the DEP. And it was binding on the township, the county, and this developer, because we wanted to do more, but we couldn't.
Okay, so the DEP is saying, okay, you can make it a foot wider, you wanted to make it 5 feet wider, you can only make it to 1 foot.
Correct.
Not that that was it, but yes. Okay.
Because if we had our druthers, the shoulders on either side of Texas Road would be wider, particularly in the eastbound direction. But we were given constraints by DEP, you can have this much and no more.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Joe, I have a question for you. Maybe, because I know even the applicant is not prepared to commit or, this was a last-minute curveball probably. So why don't we, is there something we can do that before the resolution is memorialized, we work and find some solution and we provide that language to you to be added in the resolution?
Yeah, I think what it sounds to me, based on what your suggestion of the condition be, last time it seemed like the applicant would be acceptable to that, and we just have to work out the actual language in the
yes.
resolution to express that condition, whereby, after, a year after CO, that it gets, reviewed, and if it needs to be addressed, the applicant will agree to work with the township engineer to make any adjustments at that time. We'll be more articulate and narrow down the language for the resolution, but that would be, in a sense, what the condition would be.
Sure.
So it would be including a variety of things that they could do in order to eliminate that issue? Or
Yeah, because we don't know what the issue could be at this
Yeah.
point. I mean, we know, in general, the concerns about truck traffic and blocking the roadway and safety concerns, but we don't know, I think the suggestion is if the board approves favorably on this, that after a year after the CO of actual operation, if it does turn out that this is now a major issue, then the township engineer can call in the applicant and say, hey, we have to address this. And you'll know at that time what the issue actually is. Is it westbound? Is it eastbound? Is it, the actual truck traffic? Is it something else? And then if it's not, and it's nothing, then there's no reason for the township engineer to come in, though. It sounds to me that it might be something that will end up being addressed at some point. Or, as we discussed at that point, maybe it would be limiting deliveries, because we limit down the tractor trailer traffic only certain hours of the day. But that will, at that time, there'll actually be real data in front of the township engineer, so they'd be able to work with the applicant. And the condition would be, and like I said, I'm kind of just talking now, but we nailed down the actual language, but the condition would be that the applicant's agreeing to work with the township in making those adjustments based on the actual data that gets received.
Okay, any more comments or questions?
One other question, and sorry. So I understand the DEP wanted to minimize the impact to the wetlands. However, if I understand correctly, wetlands do line both sides of Texas Road. So at some point, the project has to traverse the wetlands for those two roadways. So was it prohibitive to have the wetlands that border, that go from the development to McLean? Or is that just too long a stretch to traverse the wetlands? Because to me, all my concerns go away if the access to this site is from McLean.
Where those two driveways are actually uplands. The wetlands are not uniform across the entirety of Texas Road from one end to the other. There are two areas where why we put the driveways where we put them is because there were upland corridors to get out to Texas Road. So we were able to do that through a small upland corridor. So that's why they're there. And also to keep any kind of truck traffic away from the residential inside of Woodhaven. That was another thought that we had. The truck going out to McLean would make a left instead of a right. and end up down Woodhaven Boulevard with residential, and we didn't want that.
Okay, anybody, does that conclude your presentation?
Just for the record, any members of the public have questions?
Oh, right. Anybody from the public want to speak or have any questions? Seeing no hands, we'll close the public portion. Okay, do you want to summarize or anything else, or you're done?
Need to summarize a pretty straightforward application with the link to the bulletin.
Okay. All right. So do we have do you want to?
I think just procedurally wise, we've had the public ask, and I know that, I don't think there's any member of the public,
again,
but
the
just for the
public.
record, the meeting now would be open to the public for general comment.
Okay. General comments from the public. Anybody want to speak? Seeing no hands, we'll close the public portion.
Sorry, just want to make sure the record's
Yeah.
clear that,
Okay.
no procedural issues.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Or?
I have nothing. If you want me to summarize the application and the conditions that were discussed, I'm happy to do so.
Okay.
Okay, as testified to and as presented, this is an application for major preliminary and final site plan approval for the construction of 2 commercial buildings for flex space on the subject property. There was also testimony provided based on the recommendation of the board professionals that the 2 lots be consolidated as well. So that would also be, while it's technically called a minor subdivision approval, it would be a lot consolidation that would be accomplished if approved by the board. So there would actually be 2 approvals. There will be a site major, if approved, it would be major preliminary and final site plan, plus minor subdivision authorizing and approving the lot consolidation. The conditions I have, aside from the general conditions of the application, including compliance with the reports, would be that the applicant does agree that to make any modifications to the plans it's necessary to remove all conditions, remove all variance conditions, and will be fully compliant. Aside from the design waivers that were testified to. The applicant did agree to the comment number 78 of the joint planner and engineer report regarding banked parking, and will work with the township professionals to provide for the final banking, though it was testified that it would likely be the parking lot in between the 2 buildings, but they will reasonably work with the township professionals on determining what spaces would actually be banked. The applicant agreed to work with the township professionals on finalization of the landscaping plan and the species to be included and planted into the site. The applicant agreed to provide signage details and work with the township professionals as to meet the township standards, and preference being made to a monument sign versus a pylon sign. In connection with the initial condition I raised, the applicant did agree to comply with the township's ordinance with regard to landscape islands and provide those throughout the parking area, working with the township professionals. And lastly, as we were just discussing in length with regard to the traffic, truck-trailer traffic, and the concerns on Texas Road, that the applicant will agree to work with the township and that the township will have a period of approximately 1 year after the issuance of a CO to raise any concerns that might have been seen based upon the existence and the operation of the site relating to the truck traffic, and will work with the township engineer to address those concerns as appropriate, and we will work on the final language for that condition will be set forth in the resolution memorializing any approval. And that's what I have.
Mr. Sordillo, I just want to clarify for my notes and minutes' sake. I have this as major preliminary.
I think the applicant did testify that it was for, the request is for preliminary and final. Was the application?
We paid fees for preliminary final, and I noticed for preliminary final. I believe that's how it was reviewed, so.
Yeah, we did review for preliminary and final, and,
Okay. Yeah, 'cause
and the
I think
application stated
the
preliminary and final.
Okay. I think the application said preliminary.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I missed it.
But the approval, and unless there's any objection from the professionals, this is for preliminary and final approval.
Okay.
Any vote for approval. And that's what I have.
Okay, any final comments? Otherwise, I'll call for a motion.
I have a final comment. First comment, actually.
Okay.
So, it's pretty quiet tonight. I like the presentation. The building's really nice. I really like the bank parking. I think that's a good idea. You know, if you don't need it, keep the space green. Then we got to the Texas Road thing, and that's concerning. You know, I've driven on Texas Road my whole life, so I know those areas. We hear about closer to Englishtown Road, you know, there's another building, but that's the same road, a little bit further down, it's a different road at that point. But I'm going to support this tonight just because you guys agreed to make, you know, work with Vina in the future if there is a concern or a need for it. So just wanted to let you know that. I appreciate you guys willing to work with Vina and the staff for that.
Also, Chairman Cannon, so as the Economic Development Officer in the town, this is conducive to the need and economic growth here of these type of buildings, flex space, and light industry here in Old Bridge. So I will support it, and hopefully we can work out the concerns of the traffic impact that might come arise. But I'll be supporting it.
Did you make a formal motion? Or you just giving me a-
Well, I'll make the motion if nobody else has a...
And just to clear, that's a motion to approve based on the summary I provided?
Yes, sir.
Second to approve.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes.
Mr. Mamakis?
Yes.
Mr. De Palma?
Yes.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
No.
Mr. Petty?
Yes.
Ms. Masella?
No.
Mr. McIsaac?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
And Ms. Cannon?
Yes, I've lived with this development for about 40-some years. And so, I mean, I think the flex space thing would be a real asset to the community. And as far as the traffic, I rely on our professionals and the developer who's been here forever, to make it work. And, you know, if it becomes a problem, to be able to address the problem by the type of tenants that, you know, use that space. So I do vote yes.
Thank you. Appreciate your time tonight.
Okay. So is this it? Are we going to see you again, or you're done?
We'll be back for something.
Okay, anything else?
Just have to open up the general.
Oh, open to the public for any further comment. Okay, seeing no hands, we'll close the meeting, and I have a-
Make a motion to adjourn.
everybody agree we'll adjourn?
All right.
Okay. No objection.
Board members, yes, surfaces, if you remember to bring them. A couple of you got oath slips. If you can just sign them and give them to me. Thank you.
All right, man. Yep. Brian, you got something?